Ps, so we will start with the agenda and let's just get started. Bill, take it over.
Sure. I'm just looking at Randy, were you able to jump on?
Yep, I'm on.
Okay, great. I think we have critical mass this morning. Thank you everyone for attending. I'm going to actually move it to Polly and Kirsten pretty quick because I think the most important thing we have to do today is wrap up any last parts of the IGA because we need to have council packets ready a week from today to go out to all our jurisdictions to prepare for final review and passage of the IGA, which also would forward the question to the ballot. So I'm going to let Polly and Kirsten jump in.
So I'll jump in to start on the final IGA and then turn it over to Kirsten for to talk a little bit about the materials packet that you found in the distribution from Bill. So beginning with the IGA, let me just say from an introductory perspective, the version that you saw reflects really only one change from the version we reviewed at the last meeting. And that was the addition of the contribution of the Routt County jurisdictions to the election costs. And you'll see that, excuse me, I just, Bill, should I share my screen? Can I do that?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe I can do that. I am not seeing my share button. Here we go. I've got it. So
you should be able to share.
Okay, great. Here we are. So is everybody seeing my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to just take a quick walk through the revisions. The revision that has, the only provision that has changed since our last meeting is this provision C, the costs of conducting the election. And these amounts were supplied, Bill supplied these amounts after our last meeting, and they reflect, I believe they're a breakdown by population, percentage by population of each jurisdiction. Is that correct, Bill? Or voting registered electors in each jurisdiction?
Registered voters.
So this has been added. I think the question with respect to additional changes is simply whether it makes sense for me to walk through those changes again, or whether I should just offer an open request for any last nits or questions. And I think I can do either. We have two open items. We need to confirm which are the form of signature blocks. And we are missing, Sarah, the pledge agreement, which is an attachment D to the IGA. So do people prefer a walkthrough, or would you like to just raise any questions?
I would prefer just the questions. I think we went through this before, unless there's some clarity that needs to offer from the last meeting. But I don't want to stifle anybody's questions. So anybody on this call want to go through the changes again, or just address questions?
Michael, I'm fine with the questions. However, I'm a little confused, to be honest with you, and I'm trying to get clarification from Jay about the IGAs. I have a vague recollection of an email from him talking about needing each of the jurisdictions needing to have an IGA with the clerk also. Is that correct? Okay, Bill, so you seem to know what's going on with that.
Yeah, two different IGAs. But yes, the clerk is responsible for sending, that's why the clerk needed that notice of intent to participate in the election by July 25th. So she knew who to send an IGA out to that would cover the substance of the coordinated election. So that is different than this IGA. Those pieces don't go into this IGA. That's a whole nother thing, and that's actually really the county clerk's responsibility now.
Thank you.
I have, for purposes of maybe triggering last questions, the bulk of our conversation at the last meeting was around funding authorities, and in particular, the question of property tax, a property tax prohibition or silence on with respect to that, the use of property tax. And this version, just to be clear, does contemplate a prohibition on property tax. So you'll see here in 710, which I have near the bottom of the screen, the authority is expressly prohibited from imposing any mill levy on taxable property. Other than that, all of its taxing authorities allowed by the statute and funding authorities are intact.
Any comments? We've gone through this a couple of times. We vacillated back and forth a couple of times. We know Hayden definitely wanted to maybe have it on there. Son, you said it was a game changer if we kept it on there. Right now, as it's written, I'd be curious to hear anybody's last minute comments. Slow down.
Michael,
Not
are
everybody
you
at once.
guys, are you doing your vacancy tax? Have you decided on that?
That's Tuesday,
Okay.
and I hope we do not, but that's just one of 7 council members.
Thanks. Okay.
And Michael, I don't think we're talking about that until the 12th.
The 12th, okay.
I'm fine with this as written, Michael. All good. We've talked about this in depth before, so no further comments.
Ryan, thank you. Okay, Polly?
I
we're good
think
with what's
then
written.
that's good. And to be clear, this may be a question for Dan and John. We have sort of stripped out any detail regarding the transfer of the SST over to the, or some of those service elements over to the RTA, and have left that simply to I'll say anticipated 3-year time frame to make that happen on mutually agreeable terms.
That makes sense to me, Paula.
Okay. So I think that leaves us only with, and you may have put this later in the agenda, but maybe we talk about it here. This agreement does contemplate attachment of the pledge agreement. And Sarah, I think you were planning to just give an update on Steamboat's review of the initial draft we circulated at the last meeting.
Yes, so legal is reviewing it right now, and my one question is, who's reviewing it on the other side? How do we do that in terms of, you know?
That would be us, Sarah.
Okay.
Kaplan Kirsch.
Okay.
And I was going to offer, we have, some supporting research regarding enforceability and, the effect of a unilateral pledge and that sort of thing that I'm happy to walk through your council with for just, giving her our rationale and supporting legal precedent that we relied on in prepping that draft.
Okay. Yeah. Luke did have a question, but like, where did this come from? And so, but I suggested that, I told him it came from you. So I suggested that if he had questions, we could set up a call. So that's good to get confirmation on that. So I will you give me a drop dead date?
So I think that our drop dead date is, we need to have an executed pledge agreement from the resort for the first council packet, August 7th.
Okay, that's good.
And we'll, I think maybe after this meeting, we can correspond and just set up a time to walk through any of your council's questions.
Okay, that would be great. And so I'll email you separately. Sorry to take time on this call, but that sounds great.
Okay, and I want to make one confirmation just for purposes of the group. The concept is that this is a 20-year pledge of $1 million a year payable on the first of each year. And any changes we make are presumably going to be just about making sure that it works legally. Is that a fair assumption for this group and for us?
Yeah,
Paul,
that's the way I understand it.
yeah, and we can talk about this there might be something where we do $2 $500,000 payments in a year, but those I think are details that we can talk through.
Okay, and the concern I have, Sarah, if you don't mind talking a little bit about or previewing what some of those issues might be. I just want to make sure if we change that structure, they understand and everybody's comfortable with it.
Okay. I think that in general, the 20-year was fine, that the pledge in general, it was, just how we are, what's the payment schedule? That
Okay,
our fiscal years are different. It's not calendar year. So I think that was part of the discussion.
and I guess from a practical perspective, the calendar timeline, assuming approval of the ballot question for formation, the RTA essentially becomes functional at or around the 1st of 2026. And the process of standing up that authority will begin then.
Yeah.
And so if there is a variation in the payment schedule or the payment schedule, that may affect the cash flow for standing up the authority. And I just want to make sure everybody that we talk about that a little bit and understand the implications. And so there are no surprises, because we won't be convening again before the pledge agreement is final, unless we have a special meeting, Bill.
So Sarah, when is your calendar year or what's your year for you guys?
August 1. And I think
August
we
1?
could do, and maybe, and again, I'm going to be totally honest, our council was kind of focused on the city agreement. And so this is just, we kind of wanted to get through that before we move forward with this. And so, and so that was just a conversation that we've had, but it's not final. So I think that the two options would either be $1 million Jan 1 or $2 $500,000, and we do like 500 Jan 1 and 5, and then do it split it 6 months.
That was my initial take as well, is that if we can you guys are being great partners in this, but if we're able to get, that million, if it passes million on the first year to get us really to hire some people and get some things going, that would be a better plan. But
So,
then moving
yeah.
forward with the taxation,
So maybe
we
that's,
can actually have more money coming in next year.
yeah, so maybe, and this is me not being a lawyer, maybe we do something where the first year's $1 million on Jan 1, and then we could do corresponding would be 500 or something like that. Let me, I'm sorry that I'm late on, or we're late on this.
And I'm going to throw out an idea that maybe everyone cringes at, but you could also put in there the future payment schedule to be agreed upon between the resort company and the future RTA board of directors.
So start with $1 million January for setup, and then.
Right? It doesn't take the pledge away. It just leaves the future timing to future discussions. I don't know if that helps move this forward quicker.
Any thoughts?
I have one thought, which is it seems like we should, as a formation committee, understand the timing and amount of the first payment. And only because this is going to be an entity with no funding mechanism. So I want to make sure we at least know what the minimum acceptable would be to the extent you know it, Sarah. It sounded like 500,000 on January 1st is something that you've discussed.
Yes, but I do think if it's, I recognize the importance of this $1 million for the setup of the first year because it is the only funding. And so I think we could probably put in language that has that statement for the first year and then change.
Scheduled to be approved thereafter.
Yeah.
Does that, is that an acceptable approach for, I guess, the committee?
Yeah, I think we need the $1 million first, and then at that point, we negotiate, the formation committee negotiates. Whether it's 500,000, whatever it ends up after that first million. But yeah, I think it needs to be written in there saying that.
Okay,
Okay, and I think to be clear, Sarah's proposal is they are comfortable with $500,000 on January 1st, 2026.
Yeah,
And
no,
the second 500 on August 1st.
no, I
And then
think
after,
I think what we can propose is to commit to the $1 million on January 1st and then in 27 and ongoing. So that would be the first year's commitment, and then ongoing, it could be of half and half, if that makes sense, or scheduled to be discussed or determined, something like that.
okay,
So
but I think what's
get
critical,
the initial pledge of $1 million to set up for because it's the only funding mechanism in the first year.
okay. So I think it sounds like, Sarah, if the formation committee is comfortable with $1 million on January 1st, and then either a commitment to 500 and 500 going forward, or a schedule to be agreed on between the resort and the board after that point, I think that should give us sufficient latitude to just finalize it over the next week. Is that comfortable spot for the board?
Polly, I haven't run that by my colleagues, obviously, because we're just talking about it now. But I do think that there would be a level of discomfort with future payments TBD by the RTA board.
I don't think the proposal is amount to TBD, it's schedule of payments TBD.
Yeah, I understand that, but I feel as
Okay.
though, one of the things that the commissioners have asked for is a level of certainty that this is a real situation that is actually, going to happen. And I think when we talk about things being TBD, it sort of doesn't feel like it's a real deal. But, again, I haven't talked to them about it. I just know that they were pretty adamant the last time we had a conversation about this, that it needed to be ironclad.
Dan, how do you feel?
All right, about the timing of the contribution, I'm not sure that I have an opinion on that.
Yeah,
Um,
I personally am okay with it as well. Just because we know we have the $1 million pledge within our calendar year, and we're seeing them move forward with it. So I don't want to hold this up for that. I mean, the certainty is there, in my opinion.
I
You
agree,
agree,
Michael.
Dan?
At this point, I think we need to move forward with it, and yeah, I don't see any issue with having it as the timing to be determined. The 500,000, whatever, the payments will be $1 million a year in one shape or form. I don't have a problem with this. As long as that's in there, I don't have a problem with it when they pay it.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
I think that the second piece is, Sarah, you'd like that payment calibrated on a year that begins August 1st and I'm sorry, you're muted.
That's not, I don't think that's so important. I think it's just, because if we do a 500, it's always gonna be $1 million in a calendar year, basically, but just, recognizing that a chunk of our funding, a chunk of our money comes in January and towards the end of the season. So just trying to be thoughtful of our cash flow is mostly it. So. But so it doesn't need to be, we don't need to take our FY20, it doesn't need to be aligned with our fiscal year. It's just
Okay.
being thoughtful of our cash flow. And so, you know, when we do the payment. So I think if we do a January 1, we start with January 1, $1 million, and then we move into $500,000 January 1 of 27, and what is it, August 1 of 27, something like that. So June of 27, it's fine.
Okay.
So,
And I'm hearing some comfort with that as long as it's very clear that the $1 million every year is pledged.
Yep.
Does that get you over your concern, Stacy?
I think you mean me. Is that right, Polly?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I'm reading different things on my screen. I apologize.
No problem. You know, again, it's really not so much my concern, but I just want to make sure that I have a defensible position with my colleagues to make sure that we have advocated for as much certainty around the contribution as possible. So, you know, I think I'll take this to them on Monday. I assume that they will be fine with it.
Great. Thank you.
Good.
All right.
Actually, and sorry, Ryan put something in the, I think this is Ryan, no, Jonathan Flint said something about the pending the voter approval of the authority. So that's obviously going to be critical.
Yeah. Thanks, Sarah, for bringing that up because I flagged that too. If possible, I'd like to call on Jonathan to explain or tell us what it means to transfer operations to the RTA, because I'm not sure that's fleshed out in the IGA, how we're going to accept and absorb those operations.
Yeah, so we're in the middle of our budget process right now, and my proposal is that the RTA, pending voter approval, would begin operations on the 1st of January. And so actually my thought is it might be worthwhile to have a little bit of funding between election and the 1st of January to set up agreements and whatever that happens to be. But that is our current plan right now. And I'm looking to the leadership of Steamboat Springs, but that's just where I'm coming from right now. So I don't want this to be a surprise. That's just an assumption that I'm making pending approval.
I would suggest that maybe the IGA that allowed the formation committee funding originally be the tool for that purpose. Since we won't really have, or that we treat it outside the pledge itself. But I suppose we could manage it, otherwise it just gets a little bit messy because we don't really have a good, this pledge agreement is intended to be with the RTA.
Jonathan, do you know, I mean, have you put some numbers budgeted together between November and January 1st that you're considering that we're going to need? Is that something we can do internally, get reimbursed after the first of the year? Dan, how would that work? Is that something we can lead in from the city of Steamboat Springs?
Jonathan, do you want to answer that?
Well, I can start with just a rough estimate of 600,000 to 700,000 for existing service is kind of what I'm looking at for budgeting. Now that is expenses. That is not expenses less revenue. So that's just what I'm moving forward with.
Will the RTA have capacity to do that it hasn't formed yet?
No, I think we'd have to have it be a preparatory task for the formation committee.
At, at the minimum, I would think that would be something in Q2 at the minimum. The RTA wouldn't even have a bank account by that date, right? I mean, if you just even think about the basics, the RTA cannot incorporate and get a bank account, set up a structure of meetings, a financial management transparency regimen until at least the day after the election and the voters approve it. Correct, Polly? Because it's not a thing yet,
Right, and it has to have a certification
right?
from the state also, which
correct.
takes a minute.
It
So,
takes a month. Yeah.
yeah, we might need to, I mean, we might be able to back it up and have some pieces in place, in sometime in December. But we're going to have a little bit of a timing lag that we'll have to accommodate. And I think what we did in Eagle Valley, we had a partially baked transition plan as part of the IGA, which we've kind of pulled out of this with the anticipation that that would happen post formation and be determined post formation. So, I think if it would be helpful, and I think we funded some of that original setup work actually out of funds that came through the formation committee as opposed to the RTA itself, because its funds began to flow only in January. So I think what I would contemplate doing if we were comfortable is just approving a small tranche to start some of that preparatory work with either the remainder of the contribution from this group or with a reimbursement strategy back to Steamboat if Steamboat wanted to fund those initial efforts, just preparing for the stand-up of the authority.
Yeah.
I think that's right, Polly. So you think we will have money left over from this initial contract that we're working on right now to do that work?
I am not sure where we are in that budget, so that may be a question for Bill or actually maybe for you, Dan.
I don't
Jai
know
has
where
it.
we are budget-wise.
Jai, do you have that?
It's right around $2,000 that we'll have remaining.
Enough to buy us all lunch. How's that sound? Well, let's talk the reality in this, because I think we're adding a little challenge with this, trying to hit the ground running, transitioning this on the first of the year. If we don't transition it to Q2 of next year, then that means the city of Steamboat's going to continue paying for that service ongoing. Again, without having a funding mechanism, I just think that's more realistic moving forward to get this formation done starting January 1 and then really working into it. So if the city of Steamboat Springs is going to continue with the current service level as it is going there, let's say until the beginning of Q2, how does that affect the RTA and our funding of this continued service? Is that something that's realistic? What are we looking to achieve is my question. And really for Jonathan, Dan, or anybody that's gone through this experience, I'm just trying to be real with this conversation we're having.
Yeah, Michael, I guess I'm a little confused about the materiality of all of this because, like, as was pointed out, like the RTA won't have a bank account, so it certainly won't have a bus or driver. So I guess the question is, from a material standpoint, I thought that the idea of transitioning the regional service to the RTA also included transitioning some potentially assets and staff. So I guess my question is, is it 6 of one, half dozen of the other, whether the city were to continue that service, let's say even into half of 2026, and then get reimbursed by the RTA once there's money and the thing is formed? Or like Jonathan, I guess it's a better question for you. Is there a, like, what's your vision of transitioning that service? What does that look like? Does that mean with driver and bus and all the things, or what's, I'm a little confused by this concept.
Yeah, I guess and I'm wide open to suggestions, and ultimately it will be our council's decision because they do the budgeting and oversight of all of our assets. But my kind of assumptions that I'm making are that probably the RTA would be either doing an RFP for operations or choosing to go with SST to contract for operations with a date to be determined. I've said it at January 1. I just want to be very transparent that that's what I've done. But again, it's ultimately up to city council. So I guess I kind of throw it back at the RTA board or this group. Kind of what is your thought process? Is it going to an RFP for a provider, or assuming that SST will continue that service? And I think it's first to do the transition of operations, assuming if it's SST, that SST would continue to employ and have the assets. And then after the operations transition was made, then it would be a look at assets and timing and employment and all that kind of stuff. That probably doesn't help at all.
The contract language that we've settled on says the authority will initially enter into contracts with the city of Steamboat for the continuation of Steamboat Springs Transit Regional Service, and shall cooperate with the city of Steamboat Springs to provide for assumption of such service within 3 years following the date the authority is established pursuant to 2.01. So this is, and I think the expectation is probably that that contract, well, I guess it could accommodate both of the scenarios you described, but that it will not be happening out of the box.
Yeah, I think
words,
from
not January 1st.
No, I think right out of the box, that's unrealistic. I know we were kind of talking about it. Thank you for bringing that up, Polly, about the 3-year to transition that over. I think what we'd like to do is just if you can budget or monetize quarterly how much the RTA costs the city of Steamboat and would then cost the RTA. If we could do that on a quarter by quarter basis, then we could at least recognize that gives us a 3-month window and not do this on a monthly and kind of see where we go. But moving forward, I think the next 6 months, it's crucial that we have a plan in place now so that as this thing gets voted on, no services are hindered and we know what the expectation is. That being said, the funding of that system, we still know we need to take care of that until I have a hard time trying to figure out how we can use the $1 million from the from Ski Corps to then immediately start funding that whole line going to Craig and back, because we really need that money to set up an executive director, buy some other buses, look at some other routes, and do some other things. So with that in mind, I will talk to my council when we come to our budget, but realistically, I see a more amicable way of working at it is that, Jonathan, you're going to have to budget this for at least half the year, if not the full year, and keep that in the budget, knowing that if we at least monetize this on a quarterly basis, we know potentially what can be reimbursed, but that reimbursement may not come until we vote for a taxing mechanism for the city of Steamboat Springs to pay into the RTA. Does that sound reasonable?
Michael, I agree with you. And just kind of building on that, it feels a little precipitous, to be including it in this way. And I think the other point that Jonathan made is a good one, which is we really haven't decided if we're going to go out for RFP or just try to sort of pick this up by piece. So I could envision a scenario in which, if we want to talk about the enhanced service in Craig and the enhanced service elsewhere and, put that all together as one package, including the Craig connector to Steamboat Springs, then that might be something that we look at an RFP situation as opposed to a direct contract with the city. But we may or may not be making that decision, this group, the formation committee, depending on who's seated as the board. So I'm a little concerned about picking it at it piece by piece rather than comprehensively sitting down and saying, like, what is the best service that is needed? And, what are the best opportunities for throwing it out there to a potential provider? So I think you're on the right track, in my opinion. And Jonathan, I would love to support your approach of putting it on the first, but it does feel too fast.
Yeah, I think that, I'm going to support more so, Jonathan, that we budget for the RTA, or excuse me, for the regional line to still be in our budget for calendar year 26 until we actually vote for a funding mechanism in November 26. I feel it needs to stay on there just as a responsible factor of getting that in there. But also from the RTA formation, we need, again, the money from Ski Corps was to be used to help us prop this up and get it going. We immediately can't be spending that money just to buy out the RTA, the regional line, and then we're left with not an executive director and some other things that make this robust and get this thing going. I would love to hear other people's opinion on that, but I really think that the city of Steamboat needs to budget for the regional the whole year. We can talk about reimbursements or something else down the road, but I think that's a little preemptive right now.
Well, and from my point of view, that's the reason why I wanted the 1 to 3 years in the IGA, is to give us the time to do that. I wasn't thinking at all that we were going to do anything with the regional, with anything this first year other than set everything up. And going to RFP, I agree, Tanya, that's a great way to go, but we need to know costs. We need to know a lot of things, and that's going to take us at least a year to figure that out. So yeah, I 100% agree. I was not expecting to use any of that $1 million to pay for SST regional to Craig this year.
Yeah. No. Mr. Foote, any
Okay.
comments?
No, thanks. I will prepare the budget with that and then bring it before council. So, thank you.
Yeah, and we'll have this discussion when we come into October, or maybe before.
I don't have anything to add to that, Michael.
All right. Do you feel that's a good approach for our city perspective, Dan?
Oh, Michael, I think that's more of a council decision than something for me.
Nice dodge. I see you. Thanks, Dan. Okay, what's next on the agenda? Is there anything more on that? We're kind of hopping around a little bit, but wanted to give people the opportunity.
No, I think that was an important thing to discuss, right
I
there.
think it was very important, yes.
And well, I guess we're still on the IGA, Polly, right?
Yes, but I think that we may have now wrapped up what we intended to close out. I'm hearing comfort with the contributions to election, the prohibition on property tax, and we have a plan to have a final pledge agreement signed by the resort attached by August 7th. I think the only other request I would make is if each of you could have or review your signature blocks and make sure that, they're correct for your jurisdiction. Any corrections can just be sent to us one-off.
And is the signature blocks, it's not the formation committee members on this call, it's the authorized signer for that jurisdiction.
Jurisdiction, exactly.
Okay.
Okay.
And if we don't hear from you, we're going to assume that everything is correct for your jurisdiction.
Which means if it's not correct and we don't hear from you, that's going to kind of mess up the process, right? So Maybe I
I
need
mean,
to spend some time early next week double checking with everyone is what I'm saying.
I don't think it would hurt. I mean, at the end of the day, we correct signature blocks at the last minute. It's just nicer to know that you're approving a document that can be pulled off the shelf and signed as is. So
Okay, got it.
it's not the end. Signature blocks are not the end of the world. It just would be nice.
Okay. Should we turn it to Kirsten to go through
Yeah.
what the packet is going to look like that folks are going to receive on August 7th? Everyone's going to get the packet on the same day because it's the same packet, right? There's no changes unless the jurisdictions want to make some changes to the resolution or, well,
the
Kirsten, you
memo.
go through, please go through
I'm
what has to
concerned whether
happen.
my audio is working. Can you all
It
hear
works.
me? Okay,
Yes.
great.
You're great.
Lovely. So we took the same set of materials that you saw in the first initial round when you held your public hearings and modified them. You all, I mean, every hearing went through without a hiccup, and I don't think there were any process concerns. So we've modified the memo. You should feel free to modify it for your jurisdiction. From the draft we sent out today, we are going to make it a little more clear about future RTA authority, clean that up and recirculate it. So you have a draft memo for your boards and councils, a draft resolution. There is no hearing requirement on this final approval, but nothing would preclude it if you wanted to take comments, but we can't make any substantive modifications. I agree with Polly that non-substantive, changing a detail or a signature block is not going to cause too many problems, but you should review it thoroughly. And then Sonia, I was thinking about Routt County, if there was a reason that we wanted to connect with the new county attorney, happy to do that. And just let us know how we can be a resource. But I think it went fine the first time, and it's really the same process, just no requirement for the hearings. So let us know if you have any questions.
I do have a question, Kirsten. Are we expecting this to be reviewed by the boards 2 times, or is one going to be enough?
Yeah, that's a good question. We can do it by resolution per the statute. I also don't think there's any harm in doing an ordinance in 2 readings. So I think it's up to you all if you want to modify it, but 1 resolution, 1 reading will meet the requirements of the statute.
We would probably end up doing it that way if there's not going to be any tax element to it.
Right, exactly. Sorry, okay. So yes, Dan, I agree with you. That's fine.
I'm sharing my screen just to show everyone what we believe the schedule to be. So Dan, are you saying that you might now just do 1 reading?
Yeah, I mean, is there a reason for us to do 2, other than maybe just wanting to get it in front of the citizens more than once?
No.
I just thought that was maybe your process to have 2 readings, so I mocked up 2 reading dates here based on your council schedule. That's all. That's just me
Sure.
trying to figure things out.
We typically refer tax matters by ordinance, but if we're not going to have a tax question, then we do things by resolution.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's fine for every jurisdiction. I do think it's better to get it in by the end of August and not let it bleed into September. So we set this up for the resolution contemplates one meeting, not 2. And if you need us to modify the dates that Bill has up there so everyone is aware, I can work with Bill and we can redistribute with contemplating 1 meeting if that's helpful.
Right. I think it's important to know, everyone on this call, like, what date do you want to circle, and what, are you going to do 1 date or 2? So like Randy and Peter, does that change your thinking, or do you still want 2 readings? And same with Hayden.
Bill, I think that I think we'll still have two readings on this ordinance with a ballot question. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm seeing that Hayden was okay with one. Is that right, Ryan?
Yep. August 21st for Hayden.
All right.
Well, we'll still have the August 7th as our packet date because Craig is going first on August 12th. And we have one other jurisdiction going right afterwards on August 14th. So that's our date.
I'm happy to convert the resolution to an ordinance for Craig if you wish, or if you need me to work with any of your staff, let me know. Otherwise, we'll distribute as is and let you contemplate modifying.
Question for everyone on this call, and I'll follow up for with jurisdictions that aren't on this call. Do you want some kind of do you want a presentation to your council similar to what we did in the spring?
I don't,
No, not us.
yeah, and this is Randy. I don't think we need another presentation. Basically, I just will send out the final IGA saying, this is it. I don't see any point.
Okay.
My guess is no, Bill. But since we do have some city-specific provisions that have changed regarding SST, maybe I will check in on the 5th with my council and get back to you on that.
Okay. Sounds good.
Relatedly, would you like for the packet a comparison to the version that was approved back in April and May? I guess it was March and April.
Yeah, I would. I want a final and I want the one with all the changes just so that they can see what we've done.
Yes, okay. When we circulate the final packet that Kirsten referred to, we'll make sure that there's a comparison as part of that packet.
Great. Kirsten, do you want to just bring up if you want to share your screen, or I could try to do it? Do we just want to show everyone what the ballot language, just to remind everyone what we settled on for ballot language? Because it's also, if we want to tweak it, it's probably right now.
Yeah, that's
Yep,
probably
let's
a good
review.
idea. It's in the IGA. I believe Polly incorporated it into the IGA.
Okay. Polly, do you still have the IGA pulled up, or do you want me to do that? Okay. Can you zoom in on that when you get to it, Polly? It's hard to read. My eyes are old, getting older. Hmm. I'm not sure if you're talking, Polly, but your microphone's off. There we go. So what's on the screen, the very simple ballot language that we discussed and I believe agreed to go with the simpler form, no bullet points, highlighting what could be services. So just going simple. I guess the question is that still based on what you're hearing in your community and other things? Is this the direction we want to stay with for the ballot question?
This looks good to me. My only question looking at this is the as may be amended from time to time. Is there any reason why we need to say from time to time? Can't we just say as may be amended in the future, as may be amended? But I don't know. I don't mind if we keep it that way. It's just something that sounds weird to me to say from time to time.
I'm going to make the argument that we can probably delete that. And Kirsten, let me know if that makes you nervous. The IGA has provisions for amendment, which are
Perfect.
part of it. And so if we want to just delete that entirely, I think the IGA can speak for itself.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
Okay.
good catch, Randy.
All right. Yeah, looks good for me. Let's all vote yes.
Yeah, can you amend the no out of it?
There we go.
Vote for
One
or vote
option.
no. I want to do it.
You can abstain, but you may not vote no.
Good.
That's awesome. Okay.
All right.
Polly or Kirsten, anything more on the IGA in this, Bill?
Well, thank you. I think
Or-
we're ready to go. Sarah and I have a little work to do, and that should be it.
Great.
Okay.
Well, on
Right.
Thursday, a week from today, look forward to packet materials coming out from us. Polly, though, question for you. Would there be any reason, any need that this group would have to come together on the IGA in August, just in case, like a technical fix or any, what I'm wondering is, do we need to get something on a meeting, at least on the books, just in case something was to happen along the way to approval?
I don't think that would hurt. And if nothing else, there may be some logistics that we need to address regarding collection of signatures or last minute questions about, I don't know, unanticipated questions. So it never hurts to have a placeholder.
Should that be mid-approval schedule, at the end of the approval schedule? Give me just some guidance on when you would want to see that.
You know, Kirsten, my inclination is post-approval schedule.
So sorry, I missed a bit of that because I was just looking at one nit. But if you're asking about, having a backup if there was some final detail
Issue that comes up.
Yeah, our drop dead is September 5th. So if you need to have a meeting no later than your schedule, Bill contemplates, and depending on when everyone meets also.
Okay. All right, I'll
But
work to coordinate something to put on our calendars.
And then if everything goes as smoothly as we hope, maybe we don't need to reconvene. But I suspect there may also be some general discussion people want to have about the election and the period prior to the election that may come up after you've completed the agenda today.
Great.
Cool. All right. Let's move on to the next agenda item, which, Bill, you have going into messaging and the community outreach discussion.
Yeah, I just pulled up the agenda again, just so it can guide us through this. Just real quick, you all have been shared with you the mailers that have already gone to Craig, and have arrived in the Craig community. And Randy, you've gotten some feedback, I believe, from community members after they've seen the mailer. So I'd welcome you to share that. The Colorado Spring, I mean, sorry, my brain is in a little fog. The Steamboat Springs area mailer, which kind of is going to addresses in Steamboat Springs and the unincorporated areas immediately surrounding Steamboat Springs. That mailer should maybe start hitting mailboxes at the end of the week this week. And now we're shifting into creating one for our South Route communities, unincorporated, and the towns. And I'll be circulating a draft and getting some feedback on that. So our mailers are moving in the right direction. People are starting to fill out that online survey. So I'm looking forward to getting more responses on that and building that into a report to you all. I think it'll be good feedback to see and utilize as hopefully when the RTA is formed and the RTA board can utilize that information, and maybe that information will also be helpful between September and election day for other purposes. So um, maybe Randy, if you want to give some of your feedback you've heard from your community members.
Mostly it's been positive, and questions about when the meeting was and things like that. The negative that I did get, and amazingly, I got it from multiple sources, was that there is a map, basically just a general map of what the SST does now with the regional as far as pickup. And people were up in arms thinking that was the circulator route and that it wasn't going where it needed to be going and there weren't stops and so so basically I've just been saying it's just an example, and what Bill did with the new mailer that we just got, or the new PDF, was take that out totally, which is I think a good thing, because just saying that yes we're going to do a circulator route without having something they can look at I think is better, whereas I originally thought having a map in there would be good, and I think it caused more problems than it was worth.
It's always a fine line between not enough information and too much information. And that line changes. Well, thank you, Randy. As you heard, our local survey that's teased in the mailer starting to get responses. We have a few hundred responses. I hope that increases over the next couple weeks. The elevator speech was attached to the emails. Thank you to our committee members who gave feedback on that. But that kind of elevator speech, talking points, is a good piece to use to guide your outreach and conversations within your communities. Um, our local events list, I know Randy put in a bunch of things in and around Craig, but that's a great document to have heading into the fall. So if you know of local events, you can either send them to me and I'll put them in there, or you can click that Google link. And if it tells you you need to have access to the Google Doc approved, just shoot me a note and I'll jump into the doc and approve, give you editing ability. Our
Um, ju- just for everyone else, the events thing is an amazing piece that I think everyone should utilize. We had homemade homegrown here in Craig about 2.5 weeks ago, and we basically ran out of all of, we had an LMD district question, but we also have the RTA. We ran out of all of them, talking to people and passing them out. And so we printed more for the Balloon Festival coming up this weekend. So, and it's basically you talking to them. If one of you can be there instead of just general people, it really helps.
Yeah, and it's important to have that in there, and that's what I wanted to make sure that we have a general location where everyone can look at the events going on. Bill, thanks for setting that Google Docs up, because we're gonna get this tent, we're gonna talk about this shade structure and how that's gonna be utilized. to draw attention over the next 5 months until we get to say 4 months. And so I think we want to utilize that. But what I'm thinking of, guys, is whatever you're willing to do, or constituents. I've already got a couple people that are citizens that I'm kind of working right now to be the kind of the voice of the initiative once it gets passed by each one of our jurisdictions, a citizen-led group. If it needs to go through a process of campaigning, needs to be run by that entity. With that said, there's some people that came to me during our farmers market that want to volunteer to help with any messaging for the RTA. In other words, and I told them, are you willing to go over to the Hayden Fair and stand at the booth and answer some questions and talk to people? And they said, absolutely. So that's kind of what this next phase of messaging is really going to gear toward as we are getting done with the IGA discussion, and that's going to be done. What is our next step as a committee to really get the messaging out? And Dan and Polly and Bill, I just want you to talk about, once we get that IGA done, what do we do as a city council and what are we not allowed to do? Bill, why don't you head that off?
I mean, sure. It's, once all of our 6 jurisdictions have approved the IGA and essentially forwarded the ballot question, basically the taxpayer government-led community outreach effort probably has to wind down so that we do not run afoul of the Fair Campaign Practices Act that prohibits the use of taxpayer dollars for advocacy on elections and ballot questions. So our last jurisdiction is, I believe, September 4th for final approval. So we still have a solid month that we can do outreach on behalf of the formation committee effort. And I would suggest that we try to maximize that over the course of August. But after that, there needs to be a citizen-driven issues committee that's going to take it from Labor Day weekend to Election Day.
I'm just gonna chime in here for a sec. So we have, there have been 4 of us, Emmy Cooper, Skylar, Sonia as a citizen, and myself, who have met to talk about formation of that committee. And so we're getting started on that. So I would say, Michael, I mean, if anybody here in their capacity as a citizen is interested, to reach out to me. And also, if you have folks, Michael, who have reached out to you who are interested, have them reach out to me, so we can move forward. That is definitely, we are definitely looking for kind of key community figures who can support the RTA within each community as we move forward in the campaign. So just putting it
Yeah,
out there so there's no confusion.
Just want to jump on that one too. Thanks, Sarah, for kind of taking the lead on this. I mean, just as a reminder, Ski Corps has been generous to bring some money to the table for the effort. And I think Sarah and Skylar being kind of leads on that it's a good call, given that they are in the private sector and not local governments. So appreciate that. And I think it would be really important if anybody wants to participate in their personal capacity, not their elected capacity, to be in touch with Sarah. I was supposed to send you an email and I forgot, Sarah, so I'll do that, but thanks.
Hey, Bill, could we talk about that September 4th date a bit? And I'd welcome Kirsten or Polly weighing in on this. My view would be that once the city adopts its resolution referring the question on, let's say it's the August 19th, then that would start the quiet period for campaign finance issues, at least with respect to the city election.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that date. And it's really, the concern is the use of city resources post that date. And I'm happy to prepare a brief memo if it's helpful for others. I mean, Dan, I'm sure you do that each year anyway, but.
We've already been working on that, yeah.
Right.
So are you saying, Dan, that more August 19th is you would consider the cutoff date for Steamboat?
Yeah, and that would be, we have an election code, we have our own campaign finance rules, and so I can't really speak to other jurisdictions. But yes, for Steamboat and for anything that related to the Steamboat election, the quiet period would start when we adopt the resolution.
Yeah.
And so I think that effectively means advocacy on behalf of the RTA. I think really any advocacy would relate to the Steamboat election, would probably relate to all of the elections. But I
Dan,
don't.
I have a question on that because with Craig, we have two readings. We do the first reading, but it doesn't become officially passed until the second reading. So you're saying the first reading is when it's passed? I'm confused by that.
Well, I am anticipating that Steamboat will only do a resolution and have
Okay.
A single reading.
Got it. Okay.
There is some ambiguity as to whether or not the first or the second reading is the trigger. But for us, if we only do a resolution, the date will be, whatever we select for that, which will probably be the 19th.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So let's, Sarah, it sounds to me like we'll get together offline and talk a little bit about what you've got going with a committee for Steamboat, citizen kind of led. I will get you some of those informations. Luke is willing to help out, and he keeps meeting me. I'm at the farmer's market the next 2 weeks. I'm pretty sure at least next week this week I am. And so I want to take advantage of that and then try to, if we do want to get together from the city of Steamboat, the citizen led, let's start doing that. And then what I want to do is put together a kind of a community Q&A to just get that, coalesce those people. We don't need to do it with obviously this group, but we want to talk to them and what they're going to say and not say and that kind of stuff. So appreciate you for already starting that, Sarah. And we'll just kind of move forward with that as well. Thank you. All right. So Bill, we talked about messaging, the mailer update, local survey update, elevator speech, the events.
Yeah, so we do have we do have some meetings today, later. I'm in Craig right now, and Randy and I are hosting a group of Craig leaders and community members for an update on the RTA. We also have one of those scheduled this afternoon in Steamboat. Um, I'd love to help put those together in other jurisdictions. Ryan, I shot you an email about, do we want to try and put one together for Hayden? And I've reached out to our South Route County folks as well, about that. And we just need to, kind of decide, do we want to do those? As long as we're not advocating in those, we can still provide information. I believe, though I'll look to Polly and Kirsten to nod their heads or whatnot. But as long as we're not advocating in those meetings, but we're sharing information and asking questions, it would feel to me we could still proceed with some of those in August? Question mark.
I'm going to defer to Kirsten on this one. I would want to kind of take a little bit closer look to see where our lines are. So Kirsten, if you're comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, Dan makes a good point. Each jurisdiction might have adopted something locally different other than the counties. We could probably put together a brief overview of the state FCPA and the do's and don'ts, if that would be helpful. But I also really appreciate working with whoever your legal teams are so that I'm not contradicting anything that's going on in each jurisdiction. I'm more than happy to do that. And I don't think it would take too much time, but if you would want to put me in touch with them, that would be great.
And of course, the question is, does Hayden want to do something like that? Does Oak Creek and Yampa want to do something like that? So if the answer is no, we're good, then we don't have to do something like that. But if they would, then we can try and facilitate that.
Thanks, Bill, for the offer. I saw your email from last week. Let me just get with Matt and brainstorm on this. I'm just not sure if the juice is worth the squeeze on that, but let me I'll get back to you this week.
All right, thanks, Mayor.
Cool. All right. Anything else on that topic?
No. And we already discussed a follow-up meeting date, so I'll take care of facilitating that. So I think that's it on my agenda.
Cool. And just so you know, Bill, we're getting a shade structure, a pop-up structure that we're going to be able to share around. That's why the intent of this is. Can you just share the graphic so people know what it looks like real quick?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Yeah. And what we're trying to do is just make sure that we draw attention. You know, this is for being used now and ongoing for the RTA. I think it's going to help messaging going into next year, being able to have, again, continue outreach regarding the taxation requirements. And it's going to be heavily used, in my opinion, that we can start working on. We don't have to wait until August. We can actually start sooner on this kind of stuff. So in January, after this passes, we need to start talking taxing mechanism. But what Bill's going to show you is kind of what we had talked about. And then we also talked about using, not using the formation funds for this tent structure. The reason being is if we use municipal government funds, then there's a risk of using that shade structure after the IGAs are approved, where it has that campaign law effect. You want to mention something about that real quick?
Yeah, just I went ahead and ordered this tent as a private citizen, and then I can either contribute it or we can find a way to reimburse me. But I wanted to keep this outside of the formation committee funds so that it can be utilized for multiple purposes. So we just kept it real simple. Just, put the name of this, which isn't even the official name, and a little mountain graphic. But that's what we put together. And that shade structure, if everyone's okay with it, will get printed early next week and shipped directly up to Steamboat Springs so that it's available to use.
I like it.
Yep. Thank you. This is
Yeah.
all about Bill. Bill put that together. I was very happy with it. I love the graphics. Very simple.
Super cute.
Looks great, Bill. Well done.
Yeah. First time I've ever ordered a tent. There's a first time for everything.
All right.
I like
Okay,
the way you
just
put
wanted everyone-
yourself in there.
Yeah, I wish I had that much hair. Thanks.
I understand. Okay, well, listen, I know we got a full agenda today. I would like to encourage everyone to go to Craig or to Steamboat stakeholder meetings. They're on that email. And so looking forward to seeing some of you guys in person at 3 o'clock, if possible. Otherwise, I can adjourn the meeting unless there's any last minute questions or comments. Good. All right, everybody, meeting adjourned. Thank you for your time.
Thanks a lot.
Look for this next week. And man, I've heard nothing but positives about this. So we just need to make sure the messaging stays positive like that, and we keep getting them as much information as we can. So thanks.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you
Bye.
all.
Yep, meeting adjourned.